Your owner's wife is a weirdo. I understand you bleed blue or bleed red for your team. I understand, but your higher ups are weirdos. They like children, and amongst other things, and they're drug addicts. They're deviants. Okay, it's just that simple. All right, so let's go here. So you got a new grade of gas, or a lighter, cheaper grade of gas to help ease the pain at the gas pump. And now that we apparently have U.S. and Iran exchanging fire in the Strait, do not be surprised if when gas hits $6 a gallon. Well, especially for us out here. Some of y'all are currently paying $4, losing your minds. Okay, been there, done that. But at the rate it's going, I would not be surprised if gas hits. Well, it definitely will hit $6 out here because we just received the last tanker, our last bit of oil. And then I didn't know that California had a bunch of oil fields out here that they shut down on purpose. The whole carbs, it's an anagram. It's an anagram. Anagram, is that what it's called? Whatever. Carbs. It's a special emissions tax to prevent smog, and we're not allowed to buy anybody else's gas in the U.S. because it doesn't match or fit the carbs criteria. So this is where the gas tax comes in. The gas out here has to be specially refined to fit the carbs emission standards. So Texas just can't sell us their gas. This is the business of California politics that I hate so much, is why people are leaving in droves. Okay, so let's go here.
Gas prices being as high as they are, people may start turning to a new fuel blend hitting Valley pumps this week. But experts warn filling up without knowing this first could mean serious engine damage. 12 News journalist Trisha Hendricks has what every driver needs to know before they pull up to the pump.
E15 is now on sale nationwide. It could save you money, but there are things you need to know before you use it. E15 is gasoline blended with 15% ethanol, a step up from the E10 most drivers have been using for years. The EPA approved it for nationwide sale beginning Friday, citing rising fuel costs tied to global oil supply disruptions. It's at more than 3,000 stations and typically priced lower than standard gas.
I'm a realtor, so I can put on 100 miles a day on my vehicles.
Steve Padilla drives a lot for work.
I don't have payments on them, so I want them to last as long as they can.
When E15 hit the news, he had questions.
Risk to my engine makes me hesitant.
Consumer Reports says E15 is generally safe for vehicles 2001 and newer, but checking your owner's manual before switching is essential. Older vehicles are a different story. Higher ethanol blends can corrode components not built for them, and this catches many drivers off guard. The damage can be costly.
When gas prices go up, people freak out, and things, it cuts into people's budgets.
Dave Martin owns Martin's Auto Repair.
I got a E350 van, and I was putting $60, every time I filled it up. Now I'm putting $100 in.
He says drivers should weigh the trade-offs carefully.
The negative side to putting the ethanol in there is yes, you'll save money at the pump, but we also end up costing you more in gas mileage. You'll end up maybe losing 1% to 2% in fuel mileage. In the end, I don't know how much money you're really going to save. It just depends on the vehicle you're driving.
The EPA approved E15 under an emergency waiver lasting just 20 days, though the agency says it's ready to extend it if supply conditions warrant. Bottom line from experts, your owner's manual is the first stop before you make the switch.
If you find yourself in a situation where you do put it in there and your vehicle starts to show some signs of running poorly, if the check engine light does come on, make sure you get it to a service provider and get it checked out.
As for Steve, he's staying the course.
I go where I know.
Okay, and that's more money for the diagnostics. Diagnostics out here will run you between $60 to $100. So don't fall into the trap. Just eat it, right? That's what we've been doing. Just eat it.
I know it's going to be a fair price all the time. I think this is temporary, and I just have to write it out.
In Phoenix, Trisha Hendricks, 12 News.
Okay, this is where we're at. Let's keep it going. Let's see here. Where is this at? Nope. Okay. Louisiana. Oh no, let's go here first. Once again, I want to shout out to Techie. Last night, there was some disagreements between those old Republicans versus the new Republicans. I've always been of the ilk that even though they agreed to sign that Civil Rights Act, they were going to eventually stop at nothing to undo it. I'm not understanding why people act like, oh, these politicians, when they sign it, they mean well. No. You could sign something and be like, you know what? Okay. But in 15, 20 years, we're going to undo this. You can have this little victory now. And last night we were talking about, and we pull up the numbers about the number of Republicans that, signed for it. And I'm just like, they were always going to circle back and spin the block and undo this. And for us to say what we said last night, and then for me to come across this today, oh, we're not crazy. Let's go here. Let's see what she says about it.
We forgot, some of us. But a handful remembered. But then those handful get demonized. Mumia's still in jail, right? Assata Shakur had to get, the people who dare to say no, what you're not going to do, they get demonized. They get called terrorists. They get called, what happened to Marcus Garvey? He got deported, had black people testify against him. This is textbook. If we can't beat them one way, literally, physically, we're going to figure out. And then if you also control the legal apparatus, if you also control the ways in which people get to defend themselves. So this voting rights thing has been happening since the voting rights became an amendment. And we've been talking about it since it became an amendment because they never really codified it into law. Every
few years they have to re-sign provisions of it to keep it current, to make sure it doesn't go away. We all know this, right? Okay.
So often it had to be renegotiated. It had to be, we had to keep going back to the table with it because they never intended for it to be a permanent thing because they realized how important voting is. So when someone calls up yesterday and says, I didn't vote and I'm glad I didn't, and I'm like, initially in my mind, I was like, I do want to have a conversation. I want to understand it. I can't understand it.
So when your leaders, Jason Black and Tariq Nasheed, tell you we're going to sit this one out and wait for a check, wait for reparations, wait for tangibles. Okay. Keep sitting on the sidelines. And once again, I don't care what you register as. All right. I don't care what you register as, but you can't afford to sit on the sidelines. You got to get up and do something. You have to get involved in some way, shape, form, or fashion. All right. So 2 things I believe should happen. For one, gerrymandering should be banned, should be made illegal, and you must destroy the electoral college system. Okay, those 2 things must happen to have a somewhat decent and fair political system. You must destroy the electoral college voting system, and you must abolish completely and make illegal gerrymandering. Let's go.
Because I know the lengths to which people are going to make sure that me and you and all of the people who think like us, not just look like us, because there's a lot of people who look like us that don't think like us. Again, the majority of black people were not rocking with Martin Luther King.
Okay. Now, I didn't know the numbers that 90 million people didn't vote. I didn't know the numbers were that high. So now, here's what may or may not happen for the midterms. So Louisiana then already blew the whistle, virtue signaling. So you have Louisiana canceling its special elections for the gerrymandering. You don't think, and now we said this months ago, that there's a good chance that we may not have a midterms. And if you don't allow these people to vote and you cancel midterms, okay, let's go here. Take everything I present with a grain of salt. Let's go.
Unfortunately, we begin the day with some alarming major breaking news about the 2026 midterms and future elections. Donald Trump is openly panicking that he and his party are headed for defeat in November if the midterms are anything close to approaching a fair fight. So now he's publicly ordering Republican governors and Republican state legislatures to cancel their elections. Cancel their elections, even if they're already in progress, which many are, in order to go.
Now, if you live in one of those states where your governor or your House of Reps is going to redistrict your congressional voting maps without you voting on it, you probably live in a red state. Texas is red, right? Because, Trump made a phone call, say, hey, redistrict everything. Didn't even put it to a vote to the people. Didn't even give the people a chance to vote on it to see if we even want to entertain this idea. Now, I'm not going to make this about red versus blue, but I'm more than sure the states trying to redistrict everything are not putting it to the people for a vote. There's your first problem. Let's continue.
Go back and redraw the voting maps to rig the voting maps and thus the elections in favor of the Republicans by taking seats away from the Democrats. And folks, at least one red state is already complying. Louisiana, they issued a state of emergency to cancel an election that was already in progress. Ballots had gone out and been returned, and they are canceling those elections in Louisiana in order to redraw the voting maps in favor of Trump and the Republican Party.
So let's leave black people out of it. You had soldiers overseas already turned in their votes to Louisiana. Okay, so you as a soldier that took an oath to defend this country don't even respect your right to vote. They don't even want you to vote. Put your life and body and soul and life on the line. Your family suffers because you come back with PTSD. Your damn country don't even give you the God-given right to vote. It's not even about black people anymore. It's not even about black people anymore. But let's continue. I'm here for it.
And Trump is trying to get all other red states to do this. This is a 5-alarm fire. But before we unpack all of that, if you end up liking this video and you want to, I want to refer you to this article by Democracy Docket, which is Mark Elias's outfit. And Mark Elias is doing superhuman work trying to fight Republican election rigging and election stealing and gerrymandering across the country. So make sure you are subscribed to Democracy Docket as well. As they write, Trump issues demand that states cancel elections and rig maps for the GOP after Calais. After the Supreme Court gutted a key provision in the Voting Rights Act, Donald Trump insisted over the weekend that Republicans should rig political maps in their favor ahead of the upcoming midterms, even if that means scrapping active investigations. In his latest alarming outburst on social media, Trump said Sunday that the Supreme Court's 6-3 decision in Louisiana v. Calais required states to redraw their electoral maps, claiming that races held under current maps would be unconstitutional. So this is the tweet. He says, "We cannot allow there to be an election that is conducted unconstitutionally simply for the convenience of state legislatures. If they have to vote twice, so be it. If people have to vote twice, so be it. If you have to cancel votes that have already been returned, so be it. If people can't ultimately vote as a consequence of this, so be it. We should demand that state legislatures do what the Supreme Court says must be done. That's more important than administrative convenience. The byproduct is that the Republicans will receive more than 20 House seats in the upcoming midterm."
And there it is there. There it is there. That's how bad. That's how down bad they are. That's how down bad they are. That's how down bad they are. Okay? This is sheer and utter desperation at this point. I'm here for it. Come on.
So again, he's being very transparent. This is about getting 20 seats in the midterms. He lays it all out. There's no speculation. There's no inference. He just says the quiet part out loud. I'll also note the convenience. When the Supreme Court occasionally rules against him, as they did with tariffs, Trump suggests that the court is illegitimate and partisan and bought by foreign interests and should be ignored. Now he says everybody should obey the Supreme Court, right? Because it's politically convenient for him. The Supreme Court's decision all but vacated a provision in the VRA restricting racial gerrymandering and racial discrimination in voting by declaring Louisiana's congressional map, which included 2 majority black districts, unconstitutional. In response to the court's decision, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry declared an emergency and halted ongoing U.S. House primaries in the state to allow the GOP-controlled legislature to enact a new gerrymander before the midterms.
Do you know how many black content creators, black male content creators that I had come across that were happy that SCOTUS gutted Section 2? And then I was reading it. So Section 2 was enacted because they got rid of Section 5. So you initially had Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, and they did away with that. And so to say, hey, to keep it somewhat fair, here's Section 2. So Section 2 basically made the argument that the effects of gerrymandering is discriminatory. Now you have to prove intent. So we move from, hey, no, if you do this, it'll affect these group of people. We move from that. So now you have to prove that what you're trying to do to affect these people is that your intent. This is insane. They keep moving the goalposts. And once again, this is going to affect more than just black people, because now you have people that, votes won't count. They voted already. I don't want to vote again. I shouldn't have to vote again. Right? The whole Dominion voting machine conspiracy took place. People were like, I shouldn't have to vote again. Why you just can't count my vote right the first time? Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
Beyond Louisiana, the ruling has also triggered an onrush of Republican redistricting efforts in Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Tennessee, all of which are aimed at wiping out black political power. In his post,
and Jason Black and Tariq Nasheed want you to sit this one out and not vote. they they only go through this much trouble for one specific group of people's voting power, whether you believe it or not. I don't see Asians going through this. I damn sure don't see Hispanics going through this. I don't see, poor whites from Appalachian Mountains going through this. They only do all this for one specific group of people's voting power. And your leaders want to tell you to sit this one out. Okay. Now, the flip side is you had black men claiming they were the hump that got Trump over. They were like, well, if black men voted over 20%, that would ensure Trump's victory. Okay, so if y'all got this much power, then why are you sitting this one out? If you're the difference maker, why are you sitting this one out? Let's continue.
Trump did not clarify that redistricting after Calais would largely benefit the GOP only through the elimination of majority-minority districts across the southern states, which would dramatically diminish minority representation in Congress. Facing disastrous polling ahead of the midterms, Trump and the GOP have turned politically gerrymandering electoral maps in their favor. The Supreme Court's ruling last week likely made that much easier. The Democrats have vowed to respond with political gerrymanders of their own. So again, he says, if you have to issue states of emergency, so be it. If you have to cancel active elections that are ongoing, so be it. If it screws over the voters, so be it. We need to steal 20 seats in order to avoid losing because we can't win on the merits.
Okay, now, I am no fan of Gavin Newsom. Okay, this is not about Gavin Newsom. But this is how bad it is when Gavin Newsom has to educate you on how bad this is. All right, unlike other states, they presented the vote to the people, and the people made up their minds that they were for it. Okay, then there's nothing to be said at that point. So I would ask those that believe in election rigging. Okay, so at what point do we not believe it's election being rigged? Do you believe the elections aren't rigged at the local level, mid-tier, federal? I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but at what point do you not believe the voting system is not rigged? On what levels do you say, okay, that's legit? But when it gets to the higher ups, then it's like, it's problematic. Once again, Gavin Newsom making sense. I'm no fan of Gavin Newsom. And I'm looking at the California governor mayoral race. I don't like Manham. I don't like Steyer. I don't like none of them. I think there's one guy. Is it Blanco? Bonico? There's one outsider that's pretty much not connected to them and like through the Pelosi train. I forget his name, starts with a B. He's the only person I'm like, okay, let me take a look at what he's talking about. But everybody else from Manham and Steyer, to hell with them. But let's go here.
To change. So our approach has to be even more aggressive than we even could have imagined just days ago, not long weeks ago. So look, going forward, this is going to have profound and consequential impact on the map in this country. And obviously the impact to the black community is off the charts. Yeah. The reality is we don't know yet how consequential it will be for the 2026 election, but we do know with some certainty that there's upwards of 19 or so seats conceivably that they can take back by 2028. But what Landry did, to your point, is jaw-dropping. Talk about not normal. The guy suspended the election. He declared a state of emergency to suspend an election where they had already sent the ballots
because
out,
God forbid black people get to vote for their preferred candidate in their district.
To take one or two districts to get rid of black majority districts. Think about that. In the South in 2025, not 19 or 20. I mean, 19. I mean, this is literally two districts conceivably to eliminate black representation, suspends the election on May 16th after literally ballots were sent overseas into the military. People were starting to vote. They're starting this weekend, more formally, in early voting. And we're going on with the rest of our lives. None of this is normal. And again, it's a preview, we keep saying it, of everything to come. And so we have got to sort of redouble our efforts at the state levels. We have upwards of 10 seats looking at 2028. If we can win back state houses, now the whole playing field is about legislative races. And we can get up to about 2022 to compete. But right now, there's an asymmetry. They've got about a 2-to-1 advantage potentially going into 2028.
Is there any...
Okay. I don't care for the messenger, but the message is on point. Okay?